At the party, my husband kissed his childhood sweetheart passionately for 3 minutes. I didn't make a scene. I secretly did one thing. 10 minutes later, my husband broke down. Known each other for 7 years. Married for 5, I never imagined that Ju Ji-Yoon would trample my dignity into the dirt in front of our entire class. Today was our 5th wedding anniversary, as well as a long overdue high school reunion. The private room swayed with shadows and drifted with subtle fragrances. After a few rounds of drinks, someone started egging on a game of truth or dare. Ju Ji-Yoon lost. The dare he drew was to kiss someone of the opposite sex in the room for 3 minutes. The lively room fell silent for a second. Everyone looked at me. After all, I was his lawful wife. This joke had clearly crossed the line. I was about to stand up and deflect the drink for him, but Ju Ji-Yoon got up first. He didn't look at me. Instead, he walked straight to Bai Manyin, who was sitting in the corner. Bai Manyin wore a white silk dress, her eyes slightly red like a white lotus blooming in ruins. She had just returned from abroad, and word was she had gone through a divorce and was not doing well. Ju Ji-Yoon put one hand on the back of her chair and said in a voice so gentle it felt foreign to me, "Manyin, do me a favor." Bai Manyin half-heartedly pushed against his chest, her voice barely a whisper. "Gigi is still here. This isn't right. She's open-minded. She won't mind," Ju Ji-Yoon said, then lowered his head and kissed her. My hand holding the wine glass froze in midair, my nails digging deep into my palm. For 3 minutes, more than 50 old classmates in the room all raised their phones, cheering and recording. The 5th anniversary surprise that should have been mine had turned into the most absurd form of torment. Ju Ji-Yoon kissed deeply, even with an eagerness that seemed to claim ownership. I stared expressionlessly at the timer on my phone. When the digits hit 180 seconds, they slowly parted. The corner of Ju Ji-Yoon's mouth still smeared with Bai Manyin's lip gloss. He turned his head and gave me a casual glance. There was no guilt in his eyes, only the satisfaction of revenge. "Lu Gigi, it's just a game. You're not taking it seriously, are you?" He sat back down next to me, his tone light and ordinary. Even casually taking the wine glass from my hand, I didn't say a word. I quietly retrieved my own bag. The atmosphere in the room was strange. Some women looked at me with pity, but more whispered and snickered, mocking how my role as the virtuous wife existed in name only. Bai Manyin sat across from me, unhurriedly reapplying her lipstick, giving me a victor's smile from her compact mirror. I stood up, no crying, no slapping. I even straightened Ju Ji-Yoon's tie for him and said in a low voice, "Since you like playing games so much, I'll play a big one with you." Ju Ji-Yoon frowned, clearly unfazed by my warning, and turned back to drink with others. The moment I pushed open the door of the private room, the cold air from the hallway rushed against my neck, extinguishing the last bit of warmth in my heart. I walked to the end of the corridor into the fire exit, pulled out my phone from my bag, and dialed a number I had memorized countless times. When the call connected, my voice was as calm as a precision instrument. "Hello, is this the headquarters audit department? This is Lu Gigi. I want to file a formal report that Ju Ji-Yoon, through false reimbursement and related party transactions, illegally siphoned 2 million yuan from the company in the Sucheng Phase 2 project. I've already compiled the evidence chain and will send it to your internal email right now." After hanging up, I leaned against the cold tiled wall, my fingers flying across the phone screen. As a professional auditor, I knew Ju Ji-Yoon's weakness all too well. He was in charge of material procurement for Sucheng Phase 2, and I had reviewed contracts for him in that position for 3 full years. He thought I helped him dodge risks because I loved him. But he forgot, since I could smooth out his accounts, I could just as easily bring those rotten ledgers back into the light. I retrieved a secret transfer screenshot from my cloud drive, showing that half a month ago, Ju Ji-Yoon behind my back funneled 2 million yuan through a shell company into Bai Manyin's private account. The so-called loan certificate was so poorly forged that even the corners of the stamp didn't align. He probably thought that a homemaker like me, who only knows about daily necessities, had long lost her sensitivity to money. When I pushed open the private room door again, the revelry inside was at its peak. Ju Ji-Yoon had his arm around Bai Manyin's shoulder. The two of them huddled over a phone, laughing uncontrollably. Her hand, nails painted bright red, rested brazenly on his thigh. When he saw me return, his smile faded a bit, but carried a smug, unapologetic coldness. Well, I thought the great talented Lu had stormed off in a huff. Turns out she knows how to behave, sneered Ju's close friend who used to freeload meals at my place but now led the mockery. I sat back down, poured a glass of plain water and drank it slowly. Ju Ji-Yuan shot me a sidelong glance and muttered sarcastically, "Ji-Yu, don't take those 3 minutes to heart. Manyin just returned from abroad, she's emotionally unstable. I was just helping him regain some confidence. We're all classmates, don't act like you've suffered some great injustice and embarrass me." I set down my cup, turned to look at his handsome yet repulsive face. Ju Ji-Yuan, whose face do you think is being embarrassed right now? His expression shifted slightly, and just as he was about to lash out, the screen of his phone suddenly flickered violently. It was his work phone. The caller ID showing the company's general manager. Ju Ji-Yuan froze for a moment, his annoyed expression instantly turning ingratiating. He pushed Bai Manyin aside and stood up awkwardly. "Sorry, I have to take this call from the boss." As he answered, I saw Bai Manyin shoot me a defiant chin raise and whisper, "Some things are yours no matter what, others aren't yours even if you hold on to them for 5 years. I didn't reply, just silently counted down. "Hello General Zhao, yes it's me, Xiao Ju, right. We're at a gathering." "What?" Ju's voice shot up, nearly cracking. The noisy room fell deathly silent at his shriek. His hand holding the phone began trembling violently, his face cycling from red to blue, and finally to an ashen gray. "General Zhao, let me explain, that money was for legitimate purposes." Hello. The call ended. Ju Ji-Yuan looked as if all his strength had been drained. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. The atmosphere in the room instantly turned ice cold. The people who had been jeering moments ago seemed collectively muted, their eyes darting uneasily between Ju and me. He stood rigid, fine beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. His phone on the floor still had its screen lit, showing call ended. He bent down mechanically to pick it up, moving as slowly as a rusted toy. "Ji-Yuan, what's wrong? What happened?" Bai Manyin, sensing something amiss, tugged at his arm in a delicate manner, a flicker of panic in her eyes. Ju ignored her, snapping his head up to stare at me with terror and disbelief. In that instant, he must have connected my disappearance in the fire escape to this fateful call. "Lu Jiyu, was it you?" he growled through gritted teeth, his voice shaking uncontrollably. I met his gaze calmly, even offering a faint smile. "I don't know what you're talking about. General Zhao calling you at this hour. Maybe he wanted to personally wish you a happy 5th wedding anniversary." "Shut up." He lunged forward as if to grab my shoulder, but his friend quickly intercepted him. "Ju, what the hell is going on? What did General Zhao say?" his friend asked, also frightened, keeping his voice low. Ju Ji-Yuan had no heart to answer. He called back again, but only cold mechanical tones came through the line. He slumped onto the sofa, his lips trembling. "The project is shut down. The legal department is involved. They said they're auditing the accounts and told me to return to the company immediately to cooperate with the investigation." As soon as he finished speaking, a stifled sob broke out in the private room. Most of the classmates present had struggled through the workplace and everyone knew exactly what legal involvement and audit investigation meant. Bai Manyin, who had been clinging closely to Ju Ji-Yuan, subtly shrank back. In her striking eyes, the earlier provocation had vanished, replaced by an extremely sober scrutiny. I stood up, elegantly smoothing the wrinkles on my dress, and glanced around at those faces that had been watching the drama unfold. "It seems today's gathering ends here." I looked at Ju Ji-Yuan, my voice clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ju Ji-Yuan, since you love playing truth or dare so much, I hope you enjoy the upcoming audit process as well. Lu Jiyu, you're crazy. If something happens to that money, you won't have a peaceful day either." Ju Ji-Yuan roared wildly, trying to blackmail me with so-called shared interests. I chuckled softly, leaned down close to his ear, and whispered so only he could hear. "Every cent of those illegal funds went into Bai Manin's account or turned into property under her name. All my income is clearly listed on my payslips." Ju Ji-Yuan, who do you think will be the one without peace? Ju Ji-Yuan's pupils suddenly contracted. He stared at me as if seeing a stranger. I didn't look at him again, picked up my bag and walked toward the door. The moment I pushed it open, I took out my phone and, with a light tap, sent a pre-edited video to the high school alumni group chat. The content was simple. A recording of Ju Ji-Yuan admitting to embezzling funds to buy Bai Manyin a house, paired with footage of their 3-minute kiss in the private room just now. 10 minutes was enough for all this to fully ferment within our social circle. Stepping out of the restaurant, The cool night air dispelled the smell of cigarettes and alcohol from the private room. I felt clearer-headed than ever. My phone buzzed violently in my bag. Notifications non-stop. I knew the alumni group had exploded. Those who had once flattered Ju Ji-yoon as a success story were now scrutinizing every frame of the video and every word of the recording. I stood under a street lamp in no rush to leave and called my mother-in-law, Ji-yu. "Why aren't you back with Ji-yoon yet?" Her voice carried its usual entitled arrogance. "Did you transfer that 50,000 yuan processing fee for Ji-yoon's cousin like I asked yesterday? Don't be so stingy with family." I watched the crisscrossing car lights on the road and replied calmly, "Mom, that money won't be transferred. Ju Ji-yoon is in trouble, the company's legal department is involved, and his embezzlement won't stay hidden. You'd better think about how to repay all the money you've taken from him over the years, or he might be looking at 10 years in prison." After a few seconds of silence, a shrill outburst of yelling came through. I hung up and blocked the number. Exactly 10 minutes later, Ju Ji-yoon rushed out of the restaurant, looking utterly devastated. Followed by a few classmates with awkward expressions, he spotted me immediately and charged over in 3 strides, his eyes bloodshot and nearly dripping with rage. "How could you post something like that in the group?" He shoved his phone screen in my face, displaying the kissing video and the evidence of the accounts. "You've ruined me. Do you know this will destroy me completely? Ruining you was your own doing, Ju Ji-yoon." I looked at him coldly. "The moment you decided to kiss Bai Manyin on our 5th anniversary, you should have known that your family, your career, and your reputation, none of them could be saved." At that moment Bai Manyin, who had been hiding behind, also came out. She had already put on the face of a victim. Tears falling on cue. "Sister Ji-yu, you've misunderstood. Everyone was just egging him on and Ji-yoon had no choice. How can you ruin his future over such a trivial matter? Are you trying to drive him to his death?" "Trivial?" I turned to look at Bai Manyin, a sarcastic smile curling on my lips. "Since it's trivial, then please return that 1-2 million yuan loan to Ju Ji-yoon's company right now, Miss Bai. If the money is made up, maybe he'll spend a few fewer years in prison." Bai Manin's face instantly froze, tears stuck in her eyes. It was utterly ridiculous. She instinctively clutched her designer bag, the one Ju Ji-yoon had just given her last month. Just as Ju Ji-yoon was about to roar again, 2 black commercial vans pulled up steadily in front of us. The doors opened, and several men in dark suits with grim expressions stepped out. The leader flashed his work ID. "Mr. Ju Ji-yoon, we're from the corporate legal department and internal audit team regarding the fund irregularities in the Sucheng project. Please come with us for questioning." Ju Ji-yoon swayed as if struck by lightning. He looked desperately at Bai Manyin for help, but Bai Manyin acted as if she had seen the plague, abruptly letting go of his sleeve and even stepping back. That lightning-fast abandonment was more dramatic than any script. As Ju Ji-yoon was taken away, his knees buckled and he was nearly half-dragged into the car. His once confident eyes were now filled with terror, fixed on me standing on the steps. Bai Manyin stood in the shadows, pale as a ghost, her earlier pretense of true love completely gone. She tried to slip away with her bag, but I blocked her path. "Don't rush off, Miss Bai." I looked at her, my gaze icy. "I've already detailed the source of the down payment for your apartment in Tiancheng Mayuan in my whistleblower letter. Do you think after the legal department finishes with Ju Ji-yoon they'll trace it to you, the recipient of illegal gains?" Bai Manyin trembled and forced out a shrill reply. "Lu Ji-yu, don't slander me. Ju Ji-yoon gave that to me willingly. It was a gift. Whether it's a gift is for the judge to decide, but transferring embezzled funds is legally called money laundering suspicion." I leaned closer and lowered my voice. "The house shouldn't be your worry right now. What you should worry about is whether you can still show your face in Sucheng." She shot me a hateful glare and fled in her high heels. After dealing with them, I got home at 11 p.m. The living room light was on. My mother-in-law had shown up. She used her spare key and was sitting on the sofa flipping through my financial contracts. When she saw me, she jumped up and slammed some papers on the coffee table. "Lu Ji-yu, you've got nerve, actually sending your own husband away." She rushed over, spitting as she yelled, "I'm telling you, drop the charges right now. Tell the company it was a misunderstanding. If Ji-yoon gets into trouble, don't think you'll get a penny of the family assets." I looked at this woman who had been my so-called family for 5 years and felt nothing but disgust. All these years under the guise of family, how much had she taken from me and then turned around to buy Ju Ji-yoon designer goods? "Mom, first of all, this is a criminal case. The legal department has already gotten involved after a real name report. I can't just withdraw it. Second, I pulled a pre-printed divorce agreement from my bag and slapped it on the table. You might have misunderstood about the family assets. Ju Ji-Yuan's accounts are now frozen. If he can't repay the $3.2 million he owes the company, all his personal property will be seized, and this agreement requires him to leave with nothing. You're dreaming, you vicious woman. I should never have let Ji-Yuan marry you. She lunged to slap me, but I firmly grabbed her wrist. If you lay a hand on me again, I'll add charges of home invasion and assault. Anyway, since Ju Ji-Yuan is already inside, I wouldn't mind sending you to keep him company. Besides, I bought this house with my own money before marriage, so now get the hell out. I shook off his hand, pointed at the door, and my tone was completely flat. My mother-in-law, frightened by the ruthlessness in my eyes, darted her gaze between the divorce agreement and the empty living room, then finally scrambled out the door while cursing me as a jinx at last. Peace and quiet, but I knew the real battle had just begun. The next morning, the moment I stepped into the company building, I was stopped by Ju Ji-Yuan's close friend who had been waiting for me. Gone was his arrogance from the party the night before. Now his face was plastered with a fawning smile as he handed me a cup of coffee, saying we were all old classmates and there was no need to be so ruthless. Ji-Yuan spent a night inside, and apparently he's completely broken. If you just say it was a accounting mistake, we'll help him raise the rest of the money. I walked past him without stopping. $3 million is no small sum of all you cronies who usually call each other brothers. Who's actually willing to pay up? Or are you offering to share his criminal liability? His friend stood there frozen, utterly speechless. Shortly after entering the office, my phone lit up again, an unfamiliar number. I answered, and Ju Ji-Yuan's hoarse, almost hysterical voice came through clearly. He'd been allowed to call family. Lu Jiyu, are you really going to let me go to prison? He roared, with background shouts of officers trying to keep order. I admit I acted impulsively that day, but it was for business entertainment. Bai Mannion has a lot of contract evidence on me. If I don't go along with her, she'll destroy me. But by reporting me, aren't you also destroying yourself? We're not divorced yet. My debts are your debts. Ju Ji-Yuan, it seems you don't understand the law. I opened the legal code beside me, my voice as calm as if reading a verdict. First, criminal fines and restitution of embezzled funds are personal debts, especially when the funds were illegally misappropriated and clearly funneled to a third-party woman. No judge will rule it as marital debt. Second, last night I applied for pre-litigation asset preservation, my premarital house and personal assets. You won't touch a cent. You've planned this so thoroughly. Ju Ji-Yuan's voice cracked with tears, a sign of utter terror. For the sake of our 5 years of marriage, save me. I'll get you that apartment of Bai Mannion's, and I'll do everything you say from now on. That sake was kissed away by you in those 3 minutes last night. I pressed the save button, recording his attempted collusion and blame shifting as evidence. Just then, the company's internal audit team sent the latest update. While reviewing Ju Ji-Yuan's accounts, they found that not only had he embezzled funds, but he had also leaked the company's core bidding floor to a competitor, escalating the matter from financial crime to something far more serious. And that competitor happened to be the very company where Bai Mannion had been working. Since returning to the country, I sneered, this was no simple affair. It was a meticulously orchestrated trap. That fool Ju Ji-Yuan, who thought he was playing both sides, was just a pawn in others' hands. His so-called true love couldn't even hold out for 24 hours behind cold iron bars. When I pushed open the cafe door, Bai Mannion was already sitting by the window, no sunglasses, dark circles clear under her eyes, and her expensive silk dress was wrinkled all over. She looked utterly beaten at the end of her rope. As I sat down, she eagerly pushed an envelope toward me, lowering her voice to a pleading whisper. Sister Jiyu, here's the property deed for that apartment, plus a card with the remaining 300,000 in cash. I'll give it all to you. Could you just tell the legal department that Ju Ji-Yuan forced the money on me and I didn't know? I didn't look at the envelope. I just took a sip of lemonade and said, you didn't know. Bai Mannion, your seconded company just won the bid for the 3rd phase of Suching yesterday. Their quote was only 5 percentage points lower than the reserve price handled by Ju Ji-Yuan. Do you think the police will believe that kind of coincidence? Bai Mannion's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. She gripped the edge of the table so hard her nails turned white. Ju Ji-yoon gave me that reserve price willingly. He wanted to get back together with me, wanted to show off his competence, so he scribbled it on a napkin and pushed it to me. I just passed it to the boss. I never thought the consequences would be this severe. You never thought. I let out a soft laugh, but my eyes were cold as ice. You used him as a stepping stone, while he held you in the palm of his hand. Just now, Ju Ji-yoon was begging me on the phone to save you, saying he would take all the blame. But what about you? All you can think about is how to push him in front of the bullets. He deserves it. Bai Manyin suddenly became hysterical, her voice shooting up so sharply that nearby diners turned to stare. What else does a greedy, brainless man like him have worth a second glance from me besides his petty position and power? And sis, please save me, I'm only 28, I can't have a criminal record. Watching her contorted face, the last trace of sympathy I felt for Ju Ji-yoon evaporated completely. Whether you're saved or not isn't up to me, but I can show you a path. I pulled a voice recorder from my bag and pressed play. It captured Ju Ji-yoon's attempt to collude on testimony just last night. This is his latest recording, his already planning to pin the whole leak on you, claiming you were acting under the direction of a foreign agency by Manyin. If you turn yourself in now and confess the details of how he misappropriated funds and sold out the reserve price, you might get a reduced sentence for meritorious conduct. Bai Manyin froze. Ju Ji-yoon's indistinct complaints on the recording became the final straw. The terror in her eyes gradually turned into resentment, and the madness of betrayal made her lose all reason. Fine, if he won't let me live, then we'll both go down. She shot to her feet, grabbed the stack of property documents and evidence, and stumbled toward the police station. I stayed in my seat, watching her retreating figure. Two people, each with their own schemes, had finally begun their last mutual destruction. All I had to do was stand by quietly and watch the fire burn away whatever dignity they had left. Bai Manin's confession was like throwing a bowl of cold water into boiling oil by the afternoon of the third day. The court's asset seizure notice was already plastered on Ju Ji-yoon's black SUV. I stood by the window watching the law enforcement officers work methodically, feeling nothing at all. Then my phone buzzed violently. It was my mother-in-law. She must have heard that Bai Manyin had turned on Ju Ji-yoon. Her voice, even through the receiver, carried the despair of a collapsing world. Lu Jiyu, you have to save Ji-yoon. That white fox vixen has gone crazy. She confessed every cent he ever transferred to her over the years, and she's saying he forced her to take the money. My mother-in-law wailed on the other end. Now the company wants Ji-yoon to pay 5 million or he'll get life in prison. Don't you still have that apartment you brought into the marriage? Sell it and plug the hole, please. Mom is begging you. Mom will kneel for you. Mom, first, that's my premarital property. Legally, it has nothing to do with Ju Ji-yoon. Second, I cut off her sobs coldly. I've already listed that apartment for sale, but that money is my starting capital for a new life, not to fill a black hole. You viper, you just watch him die. Her cries turned into vicious curses. I hung up. 2 hours later, I arrived at the law firm. Attorney Wang pushed over a detailed asset evaluation report, adjusted his glasses and said, Miss Liu, all of Ju Ji-yoon's bank accounts, securities accounts, and that car are now on the enforcement list because he maliciously transferred large sums to a third party during the marriage. The judge is leaning favorably toward our motion for you to receive a greater share of the marital assets. How much can I get? I asked directly. By conservative estimates, apart from your premarital house, Ju Ji-yoon's remaining suburban small apartment and provident fund deposits total about 1.6 million, of which we can secure over 80%. His actions have severely harmed the family's interests. Attorney Wang paused. Additionally, I'm also applying to have the 300,000 refunded by Bai Manyin transferred to your name. This is the price of my 5-year marriage, and the result of precise calculation. Leaving the law firm, the sunlight stung a bit. A notification popped up on my phone, an email from my former boss, inviting me back to head office as chief financial officer. Ju Ji-yoon thought embezzling company funds could provide me a comfortable life, but he didn't know that what I wanted was a free and confident place in the professional world. A parasite like him surviving on the fringes of power will never understand how steady the chips are that you earn with your own hands. That evening, I received news from the detention center. Ju Ji-yoon requested to see me one last time. I knew what he wanted to say, nothing but cheap repentance or emotional blackmail. Still, I decided to go, not for any other reason but to personally put a final period to this absurd marriage. Through the thick bulletproof glass, I saw Ju Ji-Eun. In just a few days, he looked 10 years older. The impeccably pressed high-end suit had been replaced by an oversized orange vest. His hair was disheveled, eyes sunken, chin stubbled with dark purple growth. When he saw me sit down, a nearly insane light flared in his otherwise dead eyes. "Lou, you've finally come. I knew you wouldn't be so heartless." He rushed to the glass, grabbing the receiver with a violently trembling voice. "That money by Mannion has returned part of it, right? Please go and plead with Director Zhao again. If the company drops the commercial espionage charge, I'll get at most 2 or 3 years. I'll turn over a new leaf after I get out. We can remarry, okay?" Holding the receiver, I gazed calmly at his face, etched with greed and fear. Ju Ji-Eun. When Bai Mannion turned herself in, she handed over a recording pen. In it, "Every time you were intimate with her, you leaked company secrets to please her. That's solid evidence. No one can save you." He froze, his hand stopped mid-air, lips quivering. "Recording that bitch, she was recording me all along. When she was kissing you passionately at the class reunion, she had already figured out how to make you the scapegoat." I looked at him, my tone flat. "And I didn't come here today to hear your repentance. This is a copy of the divorce decree. The court has accepted the case. Since you committed a crime and maliciously transferred assets, all joint debts will be borne by you alone. The family savings and the suburban apartment have been awarded to me. You're taking that apartment too." Ju Ji-Eun's eyes bulged, his voice sharp. "That's my mother's only home. Do you want her to live on the street? That's your problem, not mine." I cut him off coldly. "Over the past 5 years, I transferred a total of 640,000 to your mother's account. Every transaction is recorded. If she wants to keep that apartment, she can pay me back the 640,000 with interest. But I imagine she's too busy dealing with debt collectors at her door to worry about you." Ju Ji-Eun suddenly laughed bitterly, tears streaming down his cheeks into his stubble. "Lou, when did you become so terrifying? I used to think you were just a wooden bin counter. I never thought you'd remember debts from 5 years ago. From the first time you ordered late-night takeout for Bai Mannion, from the first time you gave her the anniversary gift that should have been mine." I put down the receiver and slowly stood. "You thought you were the hunter, but you're just a clown." Ju Ji-Eun. "Spend the rest of your life in there reflecting." He pounded frantically on the glass, screaming something through the transparent barrier, but I no longer wanted to listen. Walking out of the detention center gate, the sun hit my face directly, slightly scorching. I took out my phone and decisively deleted Ju Ji-Eun's contact information. I also took screenshots of all the fake, carefully curated posts on Bai Mannion's moments, saving them as the final pieces of evidence for court. 3 months later, the court's judgment arrived as expected. Ju Ji-Eun was found guilty of duty encroachment, misappropriation of funds, and disclosure of trade secrets. With multiple convictions, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison and had all personal assets confiscated. Bai Mannion, as an accomplice, received a 3-year sentence despite her voluntary surrender. Due to the enormous amount of money involved, on the day the verdict came down, I was sitting in my office as chief financial officer at a new company, looking out over the city's most bustling financial district. My secretary knocked and handed me a document. "Ms. Liu, the judicial auction for Ju Ji-Eun's suburban property has closed. The final price was 1.2 million. After deducting what he owed the company, the remaining amount has been transferred to your account as per the court's decision." I nodded, tapping my fingers lightly on the rosewood desk. That was his mother's last home. I heard that on the day the house was seized, she threw a tantrum at the door and even tried to come to my office building to cause trouble. Security took her straight to the police station. Without Ju Ji-Eun's support, all his so-called respectable relatives have scattered. She's alone now, cursing in some old street. I pulled out a check. The 300,000 yuan Bai Mannion had returned, plus the remaining auction proceeds. I didn't keep the money. Instead, I donated it all to a legal aid foundation that supports domestic violence survivors. I had no desire to keep such dirty money. That evening, I drove alone to the neighborhood where we had lived together for 5 years, but I wasn't going back for nostalgia, just to handle the last loose ends, change the locks and rent out the apartment. At the elevator, I ran into the friend who used to egg people on at parties. He looked shabby and down on his luck. I'd heard he was implicated in Ju Ji-Yuan's case and blacklisted from the industry. Shifting his feet nervously, avoiding my eyes, he said, "Miss Liu, Ji-Yuan sent word from inside. He says he's most sorry for failing you. He wants to know if you ever thought, even for a moment, of forgiving him." I pressed the elevator button and watched my reflection in the metal doors, subtle makeup, sharp, confident eyes. No longer the accountant wife hiding behind Ju Ji-Yuan, cleaning up his books. Forgiveness is God's job. My job was to send him to meet the God who holds the law. Before stepping into the elevator, I turned and gave him a proper smile. "Oh, and I'm in the process of changing my name from now on. There is no Mrs. Ju, only Liu Jiyu." The doors slid shut, sealing off that remorse-filled face. I drove across the Cross-Sea Bridge as upbeat jazz played on the radio. 5 years of marriage had been like a long audit. I identified all the bad debts and removed every toxic asset. The process was bloody, but the final statement was cleaner than ever. I rolled down the window, letting the wind tangle my hair. Ahead lay a city glittering with neon, a future full of infinite possibilities, mine alone. As for those rotting in the mud, let them keep rotting in the dark.